Sit rep. What are you looking at? Do you know what you're looking at right there? If you're an American citizen and you don't automatically know what you're looking at in that picture, in my opinion, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You have lowered your guard and allowed yourself to become defenseless and caught unawares. Everything that's been happening in the past couple of years must be a mystery to you. All this stuff about Trump and Russia must be real confusing. Well, take your man card out of your pocket. Take your Vigilant Citizen Soccer Mom award. Throw it in the trash. Because if you don't know what you're looking at in that picture right there, you failed as an American citizen. If you are 13 years or older as of the time that photo was taken in 2014. Now, the fact of the matter is there are more people who aren't Americans who probably know what that picture is than Americans that do. But unfortunately, only maybe half feel the same way I do when they see it. Somebody from a free country, one that America's helped, they see our belief in the rule of law, even when it comes into reining in our own corrupt capitalists. We do that. Nobody else does that. Nobody else even fucking makes an attempt. NATO, the West, we are the pillars of that way of life. And anybody from the countries in NATO or that have been assisted by it, they see that and they just think, really? Why? They can't understand because they haven't been fed the same propaganda. That propaganda that made that, by the way, that's a shopping mom if I'm not mistaken. Or a little Adidas sneakers. In Donetsk, Ukraine, at the entrance to the airport. Well, what used to be an airport. And if you haven't made it out yet, that's an American flag they're using as a doormat. They're wiping the mud off of their feet on the American flag. And the propaganda that led them to do that was right here on YouTube and still is. And that propaganda became the rhetorical talking points of the Donald Trump campaign. It's like I'm holding hands and dancing with the hacker.
In my heart and baby down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door the way you treated me too many times before. I know I gotta keep you by my side till the day I die. 'Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. But now you done and piss me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
Well. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. Welcome to Fake TV's The Lost Begotten channel. I am your host, of course, Fake TV's The Lost Begotten. Isn't that something? And, see, I just got a text message. It's got me distracted. It's very important. Write that down. And anyways, today we're going to be doing some news and analysis and commentary and some historical revisitations on certain things. And let me just wait. Wish I had a mirror, because I want to emphasize two things here about everything I'm going to tell you. As soon as I can, well, I'm going to pick up my laptop and not hold that fucking camera down. Oh, this is going to go well. Okay, so behind me are fish tanks. There's my TV. Okay. Fish tanks. And more fish tanks. Covering these whole two walls is TV and fish tanks. So I have a lot of stuff to look at. Okay. Fish tank. Oh, let me fucking set the thing. Fish tank. Fish tank. TV. Okay. Fish tank, TV. If I'm looking in those three directions, I'm looking at one of those three things. And as far as my desktop here goes, you can probably hear my mouse click. But I'm going to show you. If it doesn't freeze. Oh, it froze. Oh, god damn. Well, it froze on a really goofy looking face. Howdy, Sean. Mr. Conway has joined us. So anyways, I'm going to try again to screen capture of the desktop. Okay, so that's everything I'm looking at on my screen, plus the, infinite matrix of that stuff. Anyways, I'm going to be using the slides on the side of the screen and the slides on another thing that I have, as well as just recent news headlines to try to guide everything I'm going to tell you. Now, there's a speck of dust on my screen. That's fucking annoying. Okay. There are multiple specks of dust on my screen. So you look at one, and now you're dead. Yeah. I'm just going to relax. I'm going to ignore how badly I want to go get my fucking microfiber. Anyways, if you're looking for a channel that's going to pre-program everything they're going to say and clip the videos nice and short and speak in concise little sentences and clean everything up for you, you found the wrong channel. If you're looking for a deeper understanding of things, if you're looking for aspects of well-known situations that could give you much greater understanding of things, and if you like time to think between statements, this is the channel for you. See, people that are in the South, it's not that we can't speak fast. It's just that we have an empathic vibe about us, and we like to take time to understand each other. And I like people to take time to understand what I'm saying before I move on to the next thing. Because, well, if you're always taking words at face value, and if you're always reading the sentence for what it is, then you're never really learning to question what else is there. And here I have tried to build upon untalked about subjects that, frankly, other channels exist entirely to cover up. And, well, most of the people who are in the know thanks to me and this channel enjoy a little bit of time to chuckle about certain things. You know, also the fact that I'm not sitting there clipping my shit, I'm not sitting there reading a script. Oh, I gotta think of the sentence and then spit it out through my word hole. With the occasional really lame joke. Anyways, speaking of lame jokes, we have Alien versus Fuckachoo up here. I don't know what the hell this image is supposed to be, but I made it a while back. I used to have this up there on the stream all the time. And most of what I'm going to cover in this broadcast has been covered previously, but it has now become relevant once again, so I thought I would make a shareable intro video to what I've been tracking and reporting on and trying desperately to get people's attention to for 3 years now. And that's just on fucking YouTube. I've been trying to wake people up little by little since 2011. Although in 2011 I was still getting my bearings. And at that point, I was still looking for another man behind the curtain. Because he just seemed so innocuous. And it took a while for me to absorb enough data to really see the big picture of what was going on. The entire world was being propagandized against the Western way of life in general. And I'm not talking about European white nationalist type shit here. I fucking hate those people. Okay? I'm talking about democracy. I'm talking about the Magna Carta. I'm talking about the Constitution of the United States. I'm talking about NATO. I'm talking about freedom. I'm talking about not being enslaved. Did you know that slaves used to own slaves? Oh yeah. A house slave could own a lesser slave. And there were slaves that were owned by politicians who were themselves powerful people. Society has changed greatly over the past thousands of years, as society tends to do. But we like to make judgments this day about what happened hundreds of years ago when we don't even know what happened to us 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We don't have a clue about the past 30 years, let alone the past century. And if you think you do, let me just tell you this right now. I went to school too. I make good grades. I know what you know. 80% of the individual facts are true. But you're missing about 90% of the data that proves the other 20% to be bullshit. Now, unlike most channels, I'm not here to tell you that this is some Illuminati conspiracy. I'm not here to make you paranoid of your own government. That's the specific purpose of many very successful YouTube channels. Okay? They were put here for that reason. What I'm going to tell you is very easy to understand. It's about fear. And I don't mean the elite making us fearful by reporting on news. That kind of bullshit. I'm talking about us being afraid. The West, America especially. Ever since World War II, that we won? Did we win? Did we even know what was really going on in the world? There were some countries at that point that our government didn't even know existed. Okay? And you think you're confident in what you've read in your books? Well, history is in the eye of the beholder. Not in my coffee. And you must understand that when you read about history, you can't cling to those details as if they're all facts. You must understand that they are one perspective on things. That's all you have is a story. You don't have facts until you get 3 or more corroborating sources that independently verify those facts. You know, like the Bible. In fact, despite modern dismissiveness, those 2,000-year-old stories are some of the most well-corroborated things that ever happened. But you still only have 80% facts, and you're missing 90% of the data, which proves 20% of your interpretation that affects everything else to be bullshit. So this is an ode to buttoning up a shirt that doesn't fucking fit. I hate this shirt, okay? Let me just say, I'm sorry my fucking belly button just showed. I hate this fucking shirt. It's uncomfortable. If you think it doesn't look right, it's because it doesn't fucking look right. Like, the collar just is annoying. It has this extra fucking flap of cloth that just comes up like that when you're working. And, yeah. I hate this shirt. But it was the only one I had that was clean. So I will now, in case I have to stretch again, I will button up the rest of my... Can I fucking... There we go. Okay. Stretching the back. And no navel showing. Alright, we're in good shape. just gonna take another sip of my coffee now. So, have you ever been on YouTube? You should probably know what I'm talking about by now. About Russian propaganda. But while you think, because you've seen on the news recently, oh, Facebook, got these ads got seen by 150 million, 180 million people. Oh, these people were, Bernie supporters, and these people were Black Lives Matter supporters, and these people were Trumpists, and they had them at opposing rallies, and all this stuff recently that got found out about. Okay. I've been tracking this in detail for 5 years now, and I've been having my own YouTube channel calling out these channels, calling out the bullshit that they're spreading for what it was before anyone else knew what it was. And let me just tell you, congratulations on figuring out 0.5% of what's been going on. FBI, CIA, NSA, that's where you're at right now. You're at less than 1%. And I consider, at least 20% to be critical. But you're at 1%. You could get to 5% just by watching fucking videos on this channel. Hell, you could probably get to 5% just by watching this entire broadcast. But the fact that it's taken a special counsel to figure out things, which frankly, okay, if all these fucking Alex Jones, etc. type channels, y'all remember Alex Jones? We've got a picture of Alex Jones here. All these Alex Jones type people who have just been spread their fucking nonsense. Oh, Bush is gonna never leave office. Oh, Obama's never leave office. FEMA camps. Oh my God, they're preparing for disasters. Oh, humanity. If the government was worth being as paranoid as that fucker was trying to make you of it, they wouldn't have needed the special counsel to figure out 1%. That's all they know. Well, it's very. I'm proud of them. You don't understand the joy that it brings me every time more stuff unfolds. Every time alien and Pikachus or fuckachus or Pikashits grasp on control is made weaker by the truth. One of the main things that makes me me is that I learned at a very early age that lying is just bad. It's more trouble than it's worth. It's not a faithful act. A faithful act. You understand what faith means? Faith is the measurement of your commitment to your works. Okay, there is no faith or works. It's your faith is measured by your works. If you're not willing to do works, then you don't have faith. Now, as an exorcist, I immediately, had to commit to always telling the truth. Because you're not going to make it very far in a head-on confrontation with a demon if you're a liar. Okay? Oh, now I'm looking at the coats on the rocking chair. Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to make you think I was looking at a script. But it was my specific philosophical motivation that faith is a verb, that love is a verb, that made me think truth is an act of faith, and lying is just the opposite. If you think that you need to lie about something, first of all, what have you done fucked up? Just first of all. But in the greater scheme of things, to lie to try to get away with something is to prevent yourself at an early age from learning a valuable life lesson. You lie and try to get away with shit, you're gonna become a worse person. Because then getting away with shit becomes the high of its own. And you start to feel your own sense of pride based on how well you bullshit people. And to me, that's a disgusting feeling. And I'd just like to tell anyone, no matter whether it's fucking white lies or anything else, it's a trap. Okay? And you need to find a way to always tell the truth. Because if you always tell the truth, then you're trusting in God. If you lie, you're not. TV. What you're looking at right there is my TV. And that is a liar. That is Mr. Paul Manafort. And he, it was obvious to me who he was. I thought it might be obvious, to the FBI and CIA and NSA who he was, and that they would warn the American public that Donald Trump had hired this guy, who had every likelihood of using Ukrainian blood money to influence the United States election. The truth still has a stumbling block. Active censorship of certain hashtags, that kind of thing, on the part of still unnamed colluders in the technology industry. See, where Mr. Manafort's money comes from is the Ukrainian people. And many, many of them have died because of what he did. Died wanting to be members of NATO. Died wanting closer ties to America. Died wanting to be free. That's where his money came from. That's whose side he's on. The enslavers. And Donald Trump, friend of Alex Jones, who is at the nexus of anti-American, Russian-backed propaganda. Donald Trump, who is also tweet by tweet reciting Russian propaganda, even in the election. Things that weren't even published in English. Translated just for him. Or maybe there's a reason why he doesn't read English so well, but manages to do so much business abroad. Donald Trump hired this guy as an advisor to see maybe what we could do to maybe patch things up with Russia the way a reasonable presidential candidate who wasn't a traitor would do. No. Paul Manafort becomes the head of Donald Trump's entire campaign. And Paul Gates, his roadie, or soon-to-be roadie, that's ghetto for Ward E, because you're in the same prison, ward. So Paul Manafort's little Wody. Gates. Is it Mike Gates? Paul Gates? Something Gates. Gates. Well, he used to work there with Manafort too. Isn't that special? And the way Yanukovych won elections, and that's the pro-Russian Ukrainian politician that his blood money comes from. That's why it's blood money. And that's why when you talk about Paul Manafort, you need to have the hashtag blood money, so people understand that it's blood money. Did I mention it's blood money? I'm cleaning my fingernails because I'm a dirty boy. I got a lot to try to process here and don't have any fucking notes or talking points. I do have cigarettes though. I'll make use of that. And coffee. Yanukovych. Gesundheit. You're welcome. Yanukovych, not to be confused with Yankovic, who is a different person. I don't even know anymore. He won his presidencies in two ways. One, through overwhelming media character assassination of his female political opponent, Yulia Tymoshenko. And frankly, what's kind of painful to me about like white supremacists is that to side against Yulia Tymoshenko and the Ukrainians is to side against some of the strongest European genetics there are on the side of mongrel invasion. It's a bittersweet irony that I guess I'm an asshole for pointing out, but it just happens to be true. And if you don't believe me, think about what Ivanka Trump looks like. She's alright. Now go find a photograph of Yulia Tymoshenko. Who owns blonde? Trump's sons speak Russian? Yeah, I know for sure the older ones do. I wonder if the youngest one does. The little, what's his little name? Adolf? I don't know the youngest one's name. It's Tweedledee, Tweedledum, and Little Adolf, right? Yeah. So anyways, the other way that that Manafort, who also, by the way, kind of looks like Yanukovych, and Gates were assisting their Ukrainian and KGB and fucking just Russian mafia friends was door-to-door bribery. Dishing out the cash. They just dished out the cash. Local news person, local politician, local town crier, whatever the fuck. Local influential, whoever. Not to mention just people just to walk around talking about stuff. Okay? Just people walking around talking about stuff. Something very important you should realize that happens a lot. Well, this guy was at the center of it all in Ukraine. So what do you think Donald Trump saw in his resume that made him want to hire him? Was it just the mafia connections with the Russian intelligence services? Or was it his actual resume and what he did with them, what he had experience with? Connected people are a dime a fucking dozen. I mean, look at Carter Page and Papadopoulos. You want proof of collusion? Carter Page and Papadopoulos had no other purpose in the Donald Trump campaign other than their connections to Russia. Okay? Jared Kushner had a fucking probably a secure tunnel, like a virtual private network connection from his fucking computers to Russian bank computers. Okay? And you want to talk about easy packet conduit straight to Russian intelligence? You think there's anything that goes on at Russian banks without Russian intelligence knowing? They're not incompetent like America. See, if you've learned anything about the Mueller investigation, it's that there is no elite America. We're fucking hanging on by the fucking reins trying not to fall off of this shit. Okay? And we had Ronald Reagan, he could ride that horse well and make everybody feel comfortable and safe, and strong and a brighter tomorrow. But, then we had Bush Sr. And the Republicans got really upset when he lost re-election. And then we had Clinton. Now, in a world where the Russians weren't trying to influence both American political parties, that one we thought we lived in during the early and mid-90s, because we were under the impression that the Soviet Union had collapsed and we'd all just fucking frolic around in the fields and yay, everything's gonna be happy now. And, no nation has ever lowered their guard in a worse way ever since. Just in all of history. Just literally, they just pull away from their borders, pull away from their buffer zones, rely on the power of their mafia and their intelligence services. And we just pretend there is no enemy anymore. We were all acting like, until, 1991, oh, I hope Jesus comes back. Oh, I hope Jesus comes back. Oh, Jesus is about to come back. Jesus will come back on this day. Jesus will come back on this day. We're all going to float up in the clouds and be with Jesus. Then that fucking Berlin Wall fell. Then the Soviet Union collapsed. Nobody really needed Jesus anymore, did they? It'd be interesting if he was already here at the time. Just a stranger on a bus, trying to make his way home from the Foley's Academy in downtown Houston. Yeah, I rode a bus when that song came out. I must say, I was a stranger to everyone I saw. Nobody else rode the fucking city bus from Sharpstown to downtown Houston for school. And after years of incessant prayer, well into the realms of just gripping paranoid fear of nuclear holocaust, I dropped my guard too. And I couldn't figure out what this enemy was that I was still sensing, what this enemy was that was still taking over the minds of everyone, shattering faith, shattering families left and right. What is organizing this influence to the direction that it goes? When did it become more sinful to seek comfort than to harm another? To seek pleasure than to destroy a life? At the same time, Generation X saw those virtues in the generation that impeached or attempted to impeach Bill Clinton. Faith and family became a thing you saw on cable television. Became something relegated to the naive, or those greedy enough to have something to hide and sow themselves as wolves in sheep's clothing among those flocks. Those people who just really hadn't experienced enough to know the world the way that you knew it. Well, those people weren't experienced enough, many of them, to know that Donald Trump came, and behind him was a trail that wound side to side. And they didn't see that trail. So they didn't know what he was. Because he stood up and he talked like an American. He even dry humped the American flag, which was special in its own way. But those of us who had been paying attention to America's enemies and what they were saying to the armies that they were raising against us, saw this snake for what he was. And when he speaks, every slur of his serpent tongue sounds like Satan's to us. There is nothing more painful than a Christian or anyone of faith seeing someone else of faith being pulled around by their good intentions and led astray. Not just astray, led into harmful, hateful judgment of others. Led into a self-destructive fear instead of a self-preserving fear. Now it's fear that most people, most pundits, think they're familiar with. They think, oh, the Republicans want us to be afraid so they can have more authority and more wiretapping and more weapons and stuff like that, right? And the Democrats want us to be afraid so they can get more welfare something. I don't really know how it works with Democrats. Like how the fuck Democratic politicians are sitting there benefiting off of fucking poor people. Like it really just, the numbers don't add up by comparison. Hillary Clinton's few little millions of dollars don't compare to the billions and billions. But when it comes to elections, there's more people donating small amounts to Democrats just every fucking time. Anyways, that's largely beside the point. The fear that you don't know about that's the fear that makes sense of the parts of history that have been completely hidden from you. And I'm talking recent history, past 30 years, past 100 years, as well as the past many centuries, thousands of years. Alright. I'm going to take a very quick break before I talk about this some more. And thanks everyone for watching. Please just stay tuned or just skip ahead until you see the screen change. I will be right back. help if I unmuted the microphone. So, what the hell was I talking about here? Fear. Fear. Oh, look. Ooh, isn't that scary? Don't drink it, it's poison. Fear, as they say in the Book of Doom, is the mind killer. But it's also a productivity killer. And here is the knowledge that the elite are actually forced to bear. What we're really afraid of. Should the American people know that fear? For all the left and the right have accused each other of trying to intimidate or trying to spread fear, trying to take over and shit like that. The burden they bear has always been a much greater secret. And this Drain the Swamp movement has been mostly geared at and has come from the left and the right. There are basically a Bernie crowd of people trying to do this to the Democratic Party as well. They are trying to get rid of the people, not who are corrupt, but who actually know the national security history of the United States as it relates to Russia. Now, to really give context or credence, both, to this idea, you don't need to look any further than Johnson's plea for the establishment of the Warren Commission. Basically, he said he needed to establish the Warren Commission to keep the prevailing theories from gaining traction. The prevailing theory being what was obvious. The Russians were behind it. There is absolutely no reason to doubt this. Everything else they tell you, it's just fantasy. Oh, but I saw the Kevin Costner movie too. You know, no. The CIA, really? The Mafia? What? Who works with the Mafia? The CIA did. A little bit. Just like they worked with KGB agents. But who basically is the Mafia? There are older ties between families that America as a whole even knows about. These ties stretch from Greek islands to Sicily, all the way back to Mongolia. But you don't need to connect the entire history of the mafia to figure out that JFK was killed by the Russians. All you really need to do is look at the people involved. Fucking communist who spoke Russian on the phone. He was speaking Russian to a Russian fucking KGB officer. That's who he was reporting to before he shot Kennedy. Now, I don't know if there were other gunmen. I don't know if he was a single gunman. I think there probably were other gunmen. But there was also a babushka lady. Okay, and that, to me, and to anyone who had paid attention to what had been going on in Ukraine, okay, to people who know what that picture is, the babushka lady should have just suddenly made sense. It's the unsuspecting supervisor of the operation. Just made to look like an old lady with an opinion. And yeah, everyone was running. She just stood there. There's some hard ones, man. Let me tell you. And see, what we learned in Ukraine, that the Ukrainians, they have their own. But we learned that Russia sends in these crones to replace and to argue against anyone who opposes whatever they're doing. And if you watched Vice News Russian Roulette, I can't tell you exactly where. One of these ladies, and these aren't the Russian ones, those are actually Ukrainians. They're Russian-speaking Ukrainian, but they were not traitors, not trying to be separatists. They don't exactly look entirely comfortable with the Spetsnaz, do they? Well, but I'm sorry. Those guys were local. The blonde lady on the right is the mayor of the town. Well, anyways, on Vice News Russian Roulette, you would occasionally see these old ladies with the opinions and the babushkas, always with the babushkas, giving orders. Now, according to the CIA's intelligence as of the 1950s and the informational videos that I've found from the CIA, a babushka is how a female Communist Party member represents their status. Well, connect 2 and 2 and 2. If the Russians didn't kill Kennedy, then they didn't invade Crimea. That's right. Those are just locals. Look how local they are. See, all this had happened after the Ukrainian people rose up in protest against the guy, old Polly Boy, had helped rig his elections. Now let me just tell you, Ukrainians are some beautiful people. Good stock. Just a good, strong family of a nation. Many, many different bloodlines living in cooperative harmony for many years. And it seems so natural to those people when they come together. When you watch the Maidan, when you see this protest, you see, as an American, as a Westerner, but especially as an American, they're like us. They want what we do. They feel as we do. This wasn't some massive CIA operation the way the Kremlin had all the YouTube channels and fake news agencies around the world saying. This was a lot like what's happening with Florida. This was the younger generation and a lot of the older generation wanting their own country and seeing the European Union as a way to get it. They were tired of being an undeclared satellite state of the Russian Union. And Yanukovych, whatever his fucking name is, he fled to Russia. But not after unleashing his, they call them police. They're called Berkut. And the Berkut came and beat the shit out of a bunch of college students peacefully protesting. Just mercilessly routed them. I'm talking hundreds of uniform-clad soldiers, basically, with batons, clubs and shields. And the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that, all of their parents came out. And a bunch of the regular police came out. And all those kids and their friends, and more kids came out. Say, no, this is wrong, and this is why we have to get separate from Russia, and we need closer ties to the EU. And that's when things got out of control. Mr. Manafort's friend had snipers. Now you see, the Maidan had become, after the police brutalized the kids that were peacefully protesting, it became a fortified encampment. And people from all over the country were coming to claim Kiev for the West as an ally of America, as an ally of freedom. Trump supporters, this is what you've betrayed. And they were preparing to defend themselves against all kinds of onslaughts, and there were all kinds of onslaughts. The Barracoot just kept at them. And they kept defending themselves and building. I mean, if you want to see some really cool shit, some intense drama unfold, go see the Maidan. You need it's need to know history. It's the biggest event since the Holocaust as far as shaping international politics. Didn't take as many lives, but I guarantee you, it's what they're going to be talking about in 20 years. Now, the Barracoot, on one assault, had pushed the protesters back from a particular area. And excuse me 1 second, I need to reapply some more oil. Alright. So, the next day, some protesters mustered, if you will, and they had their shields made of wood. Some of them were reclaimed riot shields, some of them were manufactured shields that they were making on the spot. And they were simply going up to try to form a wall of people to try to reclaim this area. They had lost to a Barracoot charge the day before. And Yanukovych's snipers opened up. Now, I'm not going to show this video. I have shown this video before. But there's enough reasons for this one to be flagged already. I don't need the graphic, violent content. But you can see unedited, 20 and 40 minute at a time long video clips of dozens and then over 100 of these young people. I mean, a lot of them were just kids, man, like 18, 19 years old. A few of them younger than that. Being shot by snipers through their little protester shields. A lot of them right through the heart. I mean, deadly accurate shots. And while all this was going on YouTube, and slowly bleeding its way into Fox News, in large part thanks to Donald Trump. The so-called right-wing propaganda, the Russian propaganda. The Seventh-day Adventist propaganda. All took the side of Russia. All started talking about how these people in Kiev are trying to take over. They're being backed by the Obama CIA, and they're a bunch of Nazis. Obama is backing Nazis. Obama and the Nazis. The black Jewish guy. He's black and Jewish. He's black and Jewish. Jewish and black. And he has installed a Nazi dictatorship in Ukraine. According to everyone like him. According to the Next News Network. According to Real News Now. According to this, that, and the other fucker. According to flat earthers, ball earthers, concave earthers, fucking middle earthers. Fucking Frodo was in that bitch. Wait. Here, it's all Frodo's fault. It really is all Frodo's fault when you think about it, though. Never mind. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyways. So, an hour and 24 minutes. Have we covered any information yet, Mr. Conway? Have I said anything useful, like that people should know? So we could just keep on going through this sequentially. Because after Mr. Manafort's friend fled Ukraine due to the, popular and international condemnation, suddenly the little green men, the local guys? Where's the local guys? These guys. They're local. Oh yeah, look how local they are. These guys started showing up in Crimea. Now bear in mind, Donald Trump's friend Alex Jones and Paul Manafort's friend, Donald Trump's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, his friend, Yanukovych, all on Team Russia, not on Team America. Okay? When I saw that snake slithering up, he didn't seem like a politician to me. He seemed like an enemy. He needed to be stopped by all fucking means necessary. But then again, I take the security of this country seriously. I take the survival of civilization seriously. It is not a rhetorical talking point to be used to get people excited. Like it is for some people. Man, let me tell you, they sure had a problem with journalists. In fact, if you look at the headline down there at the bottom, it says CBS News team freed after being detained in Ukraine, in the Donbass. by the separatists. And one after another, organized assaults on government buildings happened all over East Ukraine. And then the border posts were attacked all along the border between Grozny and Donbass, all the way on the east side over there. And any Ukrainian who didn't want to get sent home in a body bag fled the fuck back to Kiev, or to Mariupol, which still stands. You see, I don't need talking points for all this shit, because this is all stuff that happened and I can remember it in order, with the help of a few slides. But I gotta remember what order the slides go in, don't I? Because if you want here, you heard my mouse click? My mouse clicked. And here is my desktop. See? Same shit. Just looking at the same shit. Nothing. I don't have any fucking talking points. I don't have a hidden agenda here. My agenda is the truth, righteousness, and justice. And it just pisses me off the general, lack of any of it that's prevailing these days. You might find me seem frustrated from time to time. That's because I knew those guys weren't local. And the channels that were denying it are basically now 24/7 fucking Trump support channels. And I don't know why I gotta be OCD about these little fucking things here. Alright, that's good enough. I said that's good enough, but I keep doing it, and I can't stop. Anyways, that's good enough. What you might not realize is that Vladimir Putin's influence, his power, isn't simply among soldiers and mafia people. It isn't even just among YouTube fake personalities and Twitter bots. Wait, whose English-speaking news channel? See, the guy all the way on the right, he is of an ancient bloodline that connects right to the godfathers of Sicily. Although, I'm sure at this point you'd have to go pretty far back. But it's recognizable, isn't it? That's Mr. Nur Sultan, which is a name as much as Da Vinci was a name, or Jesus Christ was a name. Nurs Sultan. Nur Sultan. North Sultan. Now, what is a sultan? Do you know? Is it like the big king who rules over everything? No. Sultan is king of his palace and his domain. It's basically a noble lord. And the Sultan answers to the King of Kings. One should very appropriately consider that Donald Trump, in manner and in holding, in purpose and in performance. To be a sultan along the lines of Saladin. He is a conqueror, but instead of logistics, he wields the power of bullshit. But he is just the son of perdition, not the father of lies, much like that's just a sultan. But he is the Sultan of Kazakhstan, which is the ancient land of the north. Or he just happens to be president there, and that just happens to be his name. But then, I am occasionally right about things. Now, the idea of actually following Christ's advice isn't lost on Pope Francis, but in fact it's more adhered to by the Dalai Lama than it is by certain power-hungry, fear-minded bishops, rabbis, clerics. What do they call the Muslims? And you might see, if you look back through the past 5 years, quite the pattern in rhetoric and in action of these individuals. I've learned but don't remember who a couple of them are. I've seen videos with captions of this entire event unfold. Euromaidan PR's English-speaking news channel just disappeared. Well, that sucks. Well, let's hope I still have a copy of that fucking video somewhere. But you see, just like these handshakes, between the Sultan of Kazakhstan and all these various different influential leaders, religious leaders, Vladimir Putin and his minions. Well, they reached out to far-right and religious leaders all over the world, and America was no exception. Because we have a unique little way of looking at the world. It's because we've been taught to ignore what has happened to us for the sake of peace. The Russian people get taught more than what happens to them for the sake of war, all the while saying that they want peace. Meanwhile, America accepts ceasefire after ceasefire that gets violated. They sign treaty after treaty. We simply avoid war over and over again. And then the few places where we think we need to fight, where we think it can make a difference, we just get lured into a disaster, one after the other. America, the omnipresent superpower. You need a fucking attitude check. And you got one. And we all need to really learn. What is it besides Kennedy that they're not telling us? What other things was Russia behind that we ignored or even placated them for the sake of peace? Look at the 4 images on your screen. In the top left you have liberal idol Noam Chomsky talking about the poor people in Yemen and how the American Saudi allies are causing bad things, when in fact it was the Russian-backed Iranian and Dagestani invaders that were amping up the resistance there. And that's on RT. Far left bullshit on RT. Over there with Mike Flynn's friends. Far right bullshitter. And then, of course, very time period, you had, well, that's May 2015, Russia, one exercise after the other, and every single one was the biggest one they ever had. And then there was this unnoticed exercise down there in Grozny. Down in Chechnya, down in Georgia, somewhere down there. Between Ukraine and northern Iraq. In fact, northern Iraq, just a shorter drive, just a shorter march. But when they showed up on this video, screaming aluminum achy breaky bars or whatever, and declaring their obedience to Vladimir Putin, there wasn't a massive change in the fighting in Ukraine. That's where they said they were going to go. But there had already been a massive surge in the fighting in Ukraine. There was no massive surge that can be attributed to 20,000 mercenaries who are equipped with RPGs and submachine guns, all kinds of tactical gear. You know, that's them. That's at the same place. That one isn't technically supposed to be them, but it's them. And that's an Islamic State flag that they're rallied behind. Oh, and also that's a Russian tank. Just saying. But none of these things could possibly be connected to this, could they? If Lyndon B. Johnson asked for the Warren Commission so that people wouldn't panic and want to go to war with Russia, so that people wouldn't panic and become unproductive because they were in fear of Russia. What was the cause for this commission? We don't have a commission right now. We're actually figuring out the truth right now, albeit only a small percentage of it. But if the Russians go from Noam Chomsky to the largest ever military parade to the largest mosque in the world in Moscow, Vladimir Putin finished construction right around the same time as this big parade. And after Mr. Kadyrov sent his troops wherever he sent them. But you see, there were already a lot of Russian troops in East Ukraine, and a Russian Buk missile launcher had just shot down a airliner with 278 people on board, most of them Dutch citizens. And then the perfectly logical thing happened. Mosul fell. That's right. All these soldiers, they didn't go to Ukraine. They went to Iraq. And they took all those RPGs and overwhelmed the American-funded installations. And they had heavy machine guns mounted on trucks. And these Russian-speaking Muslim Chechens from Georgia, from Chechnya, from Georgia, from Dagestan, from Kazakhstan. they teamed up with the people that they used to do business with in Saddam's Ba'athist regime, who they had continued, the Russian government had continued to supply through Bashar al-Assad. And the road that the rebels in Syria wound up interrupting happened to be the road that was used to supply Fallujah and Anbar province with explosives and ammunition, so that they could kill American soldiers and Iraqi civilians by the thousands. They had been there. They attacked a prison in northern Syria and let out all the al-Nusra people. And then after Kadyrov's boys came in, they basically annexed them, and that became the caliphate. But Alex Jones and friends will tell you that John McCain and Hillary Clinton started the Islamic State because, you know, they're so influential in the fucking Muslim world. Such nonsense. Could it have been connected? Could the fact that those are the two commissions be related to the fear that they don't want us to have, that we probably are better off not having up until now? Now the fear is becoming real. What else could they be hiding then? If they sent terrorists to Syria, if they sent terrorists to Ukraine, where else did they send them? That's Thailand. I don't want to be racist or anything, but that guy looks probably fucking Russian to me. He sure as hell don't look Thai, does he? That was right around the same time, in early 2015, I think. Send terrorists north, south, east, and west. Oh wait, not north. What are they gonna do? Blow up fucking penguins? But it'd be a whole different story if they supported the Taliban. Would it? I mean, you'd have to prove that they were supporting Islamic State. You'd have to hear that from the people on the ground that say Russia and Assad were bombing. That'd be a good reason to be bombing them, wouldn't it? Because they're trying to tell the world, amongst the communications blackout, electronic jamming the works. You think that SU-57 video made it out on accident? They're trying to tell people Russia is behind this shit. Several months after I created that image, in August of 2016, the American general in Afghanistan confirmed that claim right there, that Russia was supporting the Taliban. The fact of the matter is, Russia was always in support of the Taliban. Well, if Russia was in support of the Taliban, that brings them back to this, doesn't it? Because isn't the Taliban the ones who sheltered them? And it's very obvious that there are some Russia-friendly Saudis as well. Now, while we are having bridges collapse and whatnot, Russia isn't just invading other countries, they're building shit like this. I don't know what the hell that is either, but it's pretty impressive, isn't it? And there have been people who are trying to warn of the rhetorical paranoia being sown by Russian propaganda. And their entire staff was murdered. Look at that image. You don't even need to know what it reads. What you see is a combination of Osama bin Laden and Alex Jones. You know what ties these two rhetorical propaganda machines together? Anti-Semitism. Because you remember, the black Jews are installing Nazis in Kiev. You can believe that, or you can believe me. Because while the Republican morons were sitting there trying to say Obama was weak for not attacking Assad, this is the protective circumference that Russian warships and AS-400 missile launchers was providing to the Assad regime, and should tell you a whole lot if you're aware of where we operate in the country. We don't go anywhere where that red line is. There ain't even time for countermeasures within that red line. Now you can drop your tanks and fucking go low between the red line and the orange line, and you'll be just fine. So that's where we operate, isn't it? That red line was the one you should have been focusing on when you were busy complaining about our commander-in-chief and the strategic goals that America had. Not just Obama, America. And people who became America's critics confused themselves with just being Obama's critics. But they attacked every single thing that America did. Whether it was Obama's initiative, whether it was the CFR's initiative, whether it was Congress's initiative. Yeah, Conway says they can literally only fly over Iraq because Iran's on the other side too, with more Russian equipment and missile launchers. Now, Mr. Trump here. Mr. Trader J. Trump, Donald J. Trader. Donald Trader Trump. Whatever. He must be some kind of a mystical prophet. Because, he knew that a terrorist attack under the command of Osama bin Laden was going to happen in America. And him and Alex Jones, his good friend Alex Jones, knew that, well, the CIA and the Bush administration were behind it. And they'll tell you George Bush was the secret director of the CIA when Kennedy was shot, and that's how he's behind that, too. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the Kool-Aid they fucking drink. Yep, there is a lot of talk about people who build towers in the Babylonians, especially. But Mr. 9/11 was an inside job. His good friend, Donald Trump. Oh, he just worships Donald Trump. Bush is gonna take over. He's never gonna leave office. And Clinton and Obama, he's gonna take over. And never gonna leave office. And Hillary Clinton, she's the fucking Antichrist. Oh, well, Bush was the Antichrist too. But Obama was the Antichrist too. But he was a Muslim Jew Antichrist. Bush was the Antichrist too. But he was the Texas Keebler Elf Antichrist. But Trump, they worship the Trump. All Satanists have last names that are used in biblical passages, like Donald Trump and Mark Dice. Simple little things, give them away. As if everything else they do would. Well, it'd be ridiculous to think he had anything, no matter his rhetorical and otherwise numerous connections to the people involved and the people involved in the cover-up, namely the cover-up that accused the United States government of being behind that. I would, should I start by pointing out his hypocrisy, or that he's an embarrassment to the white race? Like, which angle of his own should I use against him? Sean Conway says, I'd love to see you talk to Alex Jones. I can imagine his head exploding. That would be because my fist went through it. Sorry. Moving on. But anyways, in order for there to be some sort of connection, there'd have to be more than that. There'd have to be more than all this background information which Donald Trump seemed to should have been aware of during this time period, which he was quoting Russian propaganda on a constant basis and helping infest the American mainstream right-wing media with these Russian propaganda talking points, and eventually infecting the Republican Party with it, thanks to the blood money of Paul Manafort. But as in character as such a massive deception is, and as close as he is to all the people involved, and the people that they try to keep you from knowing were involved, there'd have to be something like a direct tie to the new bot leaseholder Larry Silverstein. Oh yeah, that's Donald Trump's real estate lawyer and, quote, great friend. Donald Trump talked about him on numerous occasions and always referred to him as a great friend. And Larry Silverstein is not a real estate tycoon. He is a real estate lawyer. He is not someone who buys giant properties. He is someone who big tycoons like Donald Trump would use to buy a property and not have to have their name on it. And, well, Donald Trump had hundreds of people on the ground, by his own words. Donald Trump had total access, by his own words. And unlike most of the American people, I think Donald Trump knows damn good and well what really happened to us. But he hates this country. He hates the American people. He hates the idea of equality as much as he hates the idea of justice, because he's a criminal. He's a piece of shit. He's a lying scumbag on the best of days. He is the enemy. He is a clear and present danger to everything even Alex Jones claims to hold dear. He is a conquering sultan of the horde. And look a little closer at that cartoon. Is that a Muslim terrorist? Or is that a Trump supporter? Well, we've learned a lot of things in recent days. We've learned about Manafort's blood money, but we need to understand, anyone from MSNBC who watches this, anyone from any news agency that watches this, you need to make people understand that it's blood money. And what Mueller's investigating right now is that that blood money was used to win through bribery and through paid crowding the Republican primary. You know, it's funny, is before Mueller, and this is, you know, one of the reasons why I know that, it is at this point that Donald Trump should take his entire family and disappear to a fucking island that nobody knows about. Okay. Mueller is, before Mueller, that's easier for me to say, I don't know. Before Mueller goes about proving that the Russians rigged the general election for Trump, he's going to prove that the Russians helped rig the primary for Trump. Because that's what Manafort did. That's what all these current investigations are actually about. Notice these things are all about issues in 2014 and 2015. It's all leading up to 2016 still. It was funny, earlier I saw a headline that said, ceasefire starts in Syria, and then a headline 2 minutes later, ceasefire broken in Syria. But on top of, you know, people without security clearances, I don't know. Sounds about right, though. It'd be hilarious if it was true. Now, Donald Trump has divided the Republican Party the same way Bernie Sanders divided the Democratic Party against basically people who are just power hungry and will stop at nothing, versus people who have, you know, decency and are capable of feeling things like shame and compassion, you know, human feelings. But what we also learned about was that there are Russian mercenaries in Syria. Just this week it's coming out because, well, America bombed the shit out of 100 or so of them. That Russian mercenaries who work under the direct employ of someone who people in the Trump campaign were in contact with, the Putin's chef guy, oligarch, whatever. Well, they attacked a small American outpost where we were advising Free Syrian Army and Kurds or something like that. And the Americans responded and killed over 100 of these Russian mercenaries that were fighting on behalf, supposedly, on behalf of the Bashar al-Assad regime. And now finally it's coming out. Oh yeah, by the way, there's Russian mercenaries in Syria. Well, newsflash, like, I don't know what to tell you people. There have been Russian mercenaries in Syria for quite some time. But thanks for catching up. Putin even basically admitted as much. I think you're right about that, Sean. I think you are right about it. I vaguely remember hearing that. It's so fucked up, it's kind of hard to believe. But, anyway. slowly but surely, one detail after another that I've tried to tell people about, tried to prove to people, is being proven, is being verified, it's being accepted as fact, little by little. Isn't it about time people started giving the whole truth a chance? Picking and choosing what you want. And saying, well, we don't need to talk about the difference between the old covenant and the new covenant, and how straw man arguments against Christianity were made against people who were hypocrites to begin with. And that has caused the current cultural norm of perception as far as religion and sociology goes in this country. You think we don't need to talk about that? You think we don't need to talk about the prescient, the ever-growing presence and the prescient fear of the threat of Islamic expansion? You keep talking like that doesn't exist, and the people on the far right are already programmed to be paranoid of you as if you're a part of the conspiracy. And that's why they don't tune in to Rachel Maddow. You know what you need to have happen? Me, Keith Olbermann, or Rachel Maddow, and Glenn Beck all need to have a little sit down. And we need to talk about people like Roseanne Barr. We need to talk about people like Alex Jones, who I think may actually be Roseanne Barr. We need to talk about the fundamental arguments that we've all considered as resolved in our own little corridors and moved past in our own directions, and now we talk past each other because of it. But it all started, and the solution ends with the spiritual fabric and understanding of this country. And if you really, Christians, atheists, anyone, if you really want to know the truth, if you really want to see what the West has to be proud of, there is mystery beyond all the mistakes of the Catholic Church, beyond all the mistakes of Europeans and Americans. Before that, there was the Horde, and it conquered almost everything those people knew. And the part of history that you get taught is after that, when people were left terrified and fighting over scraps of land. And that's all that Europe really is, just a few little scraps of land. But after Greeks and Berbers and Franks were pushed out of Africa and out of the Middle East, after the Assyrians basically annihilated and the Thracians became Slavs. The Scythians became Cossacks. And those on the borders became Janissaries. Much like the ones that Kadyrov command. From that point in history, when Europe was pushed to the breaking point, when European people were being driven into the sea, that's when America was discovered. That's when we came here. That's what makes us a nation of refugees. We took people from Africa, not as slaves, and then we took slaves. We took people from all over with us, because we came from all over, and there was no us. You can't sit there and blame America of 100 years ago and pretend like it's even the same thing as it is today. Much less 200 years ago. Those were people from different places, from all over the world. And we all came here and we all had our own ways. And a lot of the places those people came from, their way was ownership of slaves. But you know what? That was the way of a lot of African tribes. That was certainly the way of the Arabs. And that was to an unimaginable degree for most Westerners how the entirety of the East was ran. The horde people. You're talking about khanates. Can you imagine what it would be like to live in a place called a khanate? How about the Chipak Khanate, which was thriving in the early 1500s in what is now known as Donbass and Crimea in eastern Ukraine. That is where the enemy of this day comes from. And they have been at this country's gates since its inception. And you sided with them for tax cuts. Good job. And on that bombshell, it's time to call this one a broadcast. Thank you very much, Mr. Conway, for hanging out and chatting with me. And thank you everyone in the future who will watch this and be informed. Please share this video. Please click the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And also, copy and paste the link of this one and suggest it to anyone who'd like to really know what's going on in the world right now. Think of what's your favorite part of this. Find something relevant that somebody's discussing and paste the link to this video. This is need-to-know information, people. Thanks for watching. Peace.
In my heart, and baby down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. as before. Don't you know you love them, baby, too? Oh, you know I want you there, wanna be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side today. I've got